If there was a way to have independent food, water, and energy on your own land, would you be interested? I hope you said yes, because this seems to be one of the key solutions for humanity right now. We have one of the champions on earth who's doing it. Very exciting conversation. Hey, everybody, welcome to Voluntary Living with me, David James Rodriguez. We are building a world based on consent, self ownership, and freedom. And we have a special guest, Jim Gale, the founder of Food Forest Abundance and Freedom Farm Academy, and so many solutions and uplifting messaging for you to listen to today. So before we get into it, welcome to the show, Jim.
Oh, thank you, brother. It's great to be here, man. I just love you, the work you're doing, the energy you put out to the world. Thank you for everything that you're doing.
Likewise, brother. So much respect and admiration for you, because I've been to your land there in Florida, Galt's Landing, and we're going to talk about that. But I've seen it just the last couple of years when it was, I guess, 15 months, and then most recently in November. So we're seeing this growth of your independent food forest. You got cows there now. But for some of the new people who maybe they're just discovering you for the first time, would you mind sharing what is Food Forest Abundance and Freedom Farm Academy, and why are you so passionate about it, and why you're one of the loudest voices for the solution on the earth?
Because it's the solution to all the world's biggest problems. And it's so simple. When we take the poisons out and we become the stewards of our land again, we literally solve all of it. We solve deforestation and mass extinction and diabetes, heart disease, cancer. We end hunger and we end tyranny all at the same time, simply by doing what's best for us. And that's loving ourselves and our land, and then planting food very strategically. So this right here is a 22-month-old food forest. 22 months ago, there was nothing here but sand. Now it provides so much food for not only us, but for animals, for butterflies, for turkeys, for chickens, for rabbits, for every bit of life. It's and isn't it beautiful? Like, this could be a lawn, right?
Definitely.
What this would be in a normal development, this would be a lawn. But
That's
instead of grass, we have ground cover like this perennial peanut, right? This is an earth living band-aid, right? This is a scar on the earth. And the perennial peanut is doing its job, and it's covering up the scar while it's fixing nitrogen and putting nutrients into the soil. Isn't that magical?
it is. It's
Yeah.
almost like the creator or God has a supreme wisdom that we're barely just scratching the surface on right now.
Isn't it? I mean, that's, you just said a mouthful. Like, these entities that have convinced some people, nobody really listening to this show, but a lot of people in our society, that it's better to use something that was made in a lab that's toxic, that has the word side at the end of it, right? It's insane on so many levels. And yet we've been programmed to believe in the government narrative, the mind control, governmente, meaning mind control narrative.
Yes.
As soon as we free our minds and we start loving life again and this earth again, then we win the war. And the Garden of Eden is literally our prize.
Yes, I love how you call it the Garden of Eden, because that's what it is. Walking through there a couple times, you see all the insects and the edibles, and you've been, I guess, having a green thumb for many years. And why don't you share with some of the people what, I guess, how it started, 22 months ago, and then what inspired you to create this?
So, first thing I want to do is dispel the myth that I have a green thumb. I am not a farmer, and I've never grown anything in my life.
Nice.
Nature does all the work. When we use the permaculture ethics and design principles, and we design our land to be productive, when we raise up land to capture water, and when we put nitrogen fixers and beneficial insect attractors and pollinators into a guild, right? A guild is a community of plants that support each other. Now, this is January, which is the worst time of year for leaves and foliage, and yet it still looks pretty darn good.
Mm.
Now, some people in Minnesota or Arizona or the mountains or wherever, they're saying, oh, but I can't do that in my hometown or in my
Right.
area. Yes, you can, It's just different plants, right? So back to the guild. A guild is a community of plants that support each other. Once you design the guilds in properly and the water collection and storage systems properly, then nature does everything else.
Got it. So your job is just to kind of position the plants and seeds. Oh, the turkey. How many turkeys you have on the land there?
We have 4 now, plus we have wild turkeys that come in quite often.
Mm.
And we love just attracting this type of life. This guy, he'll just walk around. He likes hanging out with me. It's funny as heck.
Yeah, I've seen him on a couple videos. I think he likes the
Yeah,
internet fame too.
he does. He does. Man. It's hilarious.
Yeah, so you have like 20 acres, I believe, and the food forest is what, like a tenth or a fifth of an acre? How big is the actual spot where you're at? Because it's not the whole 20 acres.
Right. So we have 51 acres in total, and we're on a private 430-acre lake. And by the way, everybody listening, please come visit because that's what this is all about. You could probably see the lake in the distance. So that's a 430-acre lake, and we have the only dock on this beautiful, magnificent lake. And then we have several thousand feet of lakeshore. And then on the other side of our property, we have a mile-long paved runway that's on the bordering property, which we will be using to invite world leaders in to demonstrate freedom. So this particular food forest is about an acre, right? It goes this way, maybe 50 yards, and it goes that way, maybe 100 yards. And 1 acre provides so much beauty and abundance that we are using this as a nursery to propagate plants from here to put out the whole 50 acres.
Mm. Okay, so the dream for the land is eventually have just food all over the 50 acres, not just in that one particular rough acre area.
Exactly, because why not? Like every piece of land becomes an opportunity. And the return on investment when you put a fruit tree in the ground, or let's use one of these bananas as an example. So 22 months ago, this is the first place that we planted. And we put 2 bananas in this little area right here. And now those 2 bananas have turned into 5 or 6 banana plants, and they've already produced several harvests. So imagine the return on investment of the fiat, right? We know that fiat is crap, it's shit. And the best thing to do with shit is compost it, right? So that's what we teach people to do. The best ROI, the return on investment and return on intention, is to put food in the ground with our fiat right now during a food supply chain collapse.
Hmm. Right. And
Yeah.
it does seem like that's what they're building up towards. We've heard cyber war or whatever cockamamie thing that they're going to invent to terrorize us. But this property, when I was there a couple times, I just feel so much confidence and strength and peace and joy anytime I'm on your land. And I guess that's what the vision is. So you have food forest abundance, what helps people design and I believe install the food forest. And then Freedom Farm Academy is kind of like a nursery for business, but also teaching people, empowering people. You want to talk about why it's superior than a lawn and why it just makes so much sense that people should really start thinking about doing this right now?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, you never have to mow it, right? We've never mowed and we've never added poisons to this area. Right? Instead, we encourage diversity. So people say, what about insects? We love insects. We don't like to have like what a monoculture attracts is a plague of insects unless poisons are used. So that's why we have 240 different types of plants growing and we don't have any imbalance. um, yeah, the lawn is the physical foundation of humanity's enslavement. 47 million acres. When we simply convert half of our lawns into this type of landscape, when we catalyze a shift in awareness that leads to mass adoption of just doing what's totally logical and best for us on every level, then 890 million acres of farmland go back to nature. How cool is that? When the buffalo will roam again, we will have the whole natural ecosystem back alive again. That's what's coming, my friends. With your help, with our help, together, we win this war and we create this beautiful system for our grandkids. And to the Freedom Farm Academy. So, a Freedom Farm Academy is very simple. It's a homestead that produces all of its own food, water, and energy, and also becomes a demonstration site and an education site and a nursery to help the neighbors and the community around us be self-reliant. This is, if this were a military strategy, if this were a war, and it is, and we were looking for a military strategy to win the war, this is it.
Right. And I remember reading something about victory gardens. I guess it was in World War II or something. So it's like independent food is a known method to become independent and not be relying on these corporate food systems, which you said, filled with poisons. One of the favorite things I love what you talk about is how it's a strategic defense mechanism too. So when you have food and your neighbors have food, you want to share how that is a very important factor that homeowners and families should definitely be thinking about?
We talk about this. In fact, we talked about it just an hour ago here. Food security. If we are the only ones here at Galt's Landing that have food, that is not food security, because we would need an army to protect the food. So food security is when all of our neighbors have food. So we are intentionally creating a lot of plants and growing a lot of plants that propagate easily. Sweet potatoes and longevity spinach and Okinawa spinach and papayas and bananas and yucca and others that you stick in the ground and you give them a tiny bit of love and they'll provide endless nutrition and beauty and abundance. And it's really important that we know what those crops are in our zone. So in wherever you're listening from, you have crops that are the same way. Even some cactus in some desert regions can do this, right? So we just find out what plants are edible in what zone, and then we make sure we have enough to propagate for our neighbors, especially with what's to come.
Right. Yeah, it just makes sense that if you have food and your neighbors have food, then you can actually share with each other and have abundance together. But like you said, if you're the only one, then you're the target. So for some of the other homeowners out there who have, maybe you have a quarter acre or a tenth of an acre, it's really that time to consider putting this in your backyard or maybe even front yard. Because, and then as your neighbors get it too, now this food abundance is going to liberate you for whatever thing is coming. Most important is food, water, and if you're in a hot or cold climate, you want to have some type of energy to keep warm or keep cool. But the food aspect is so exciting. I'm glad you said you don't have a green thumb, because I'm on my second year of a garden and the pests come get my stuff. And I'm like, man, this is kind of difficult. But there is a
Yeah.
process of learning and discovering what the plants like and how you can make them synergistically. You mentioned permaculture ethics, and well, I guess one of my favorite quotes from Bill Mollison, I think, is what you say is that the problems we face are complex and the solutions are embarrassingly simple. And it is, it's just like where to begin. So, for somebody who has a lawn in their front yard and backyard, what would you say would be the beginning steps for somebody to begin walking in your steps? Maybe not, 50 acres or a large acre plot, but like I said, a tenth of an acre, what would you suggest to them to start thinking about or preparing for themselves?
So you see this white circle here?
Yes.
This is 20 foot in diameter. On this little 20-foot circle, you can have 3 primary fruit and nut trees. You can have easily a dozen support berries, blue raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, mulberries. You can then have sweet potatoes, turmeric, and ginger. You can have mushrooms. You could have basil, society garlic, rosemary, and thyme. And like literally in this one spot, you could, if you want to get nuts, you could have over 50 different species here, but you could easily have, 12 to 20. So my point with that is just start with what you got, right? If you're living in a condo and you have a closet, then go get some LED lights and get some 5-gallon buckets and put some spuds in there and give them some water once in a while. And now all of a sudden you'll turn soil into food How miraculous is that? Right?
So
It's
beautiful.
absolutely divine, like literally the system that we have. And it's just about starting with what you've got and then designing it. And I've made this mistake my first 10 years in permaculture. I just thought, oh, I'll just look at some videos and I'll just go out and do it. And the amount that I've saved now of time and energy by bringing in people. Now, I'm a pretty good designer, and I've still hired people on my design team to design this system because they have the time, energy, and history to get really detailed about how to put it all together. And that has made a huge difference.
Yeah, so you have a good sized plot there, but say for an average person, how tedious or difficult is the upkeep compared with a lawn?
Well, I'll give you an example. So this in 22 months, we have done really maybe 2 days of soil amending and weeding. Now, we don't really do any weeding, but there's been times where there's a certain crop like the Caesar weed and stuff where we'll go around with a couple of people and we'll just yank them all out because they're pretty competitive. But to say it in another way, this is probably 1/5 the amount of maintenance of a lawn.
1/5.
Yeah.
And how about
And there's
water?
another, yeah, and there's another system that we have that's down the way a little bit, a few hundred yards from here, where the only thing we've done in 2.5 years is we've mowed the lawn in the middle of the rows. So it's literally less, it's far, far less maintenance than a lawn. And water. So we do have irrigation. Irrigation in some areas is critical. In other areas, it's really important at the beginning because it's like a baby. When these food forests are young, they're more fragile. I'm not sure if you can see how the land is raised up right here, right?
Yes.
But this is raised up by design. So when we have a rain event, the rain will come in and it is intended right here sink into the land. And bananas love water. So the bananas that are at the circle end are much taller than the bananas that are at the end of the row. So bananas like circles.
Amazing.
Yeah, isn't it? It's
Oh man, it's
every day I
beautiful.
just walk around here and I feel so good. I just feel so happy here, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, man. No, I've seen it a few times, and that's like, man, this is beautiful. You got the Airbnbs, so technically, your place there is a Freedom Farm Academy. Is that accurate?
It's exactly right. So the whole Freedom Farm Academy model came about by me asking myself, what do I want for myself and my family? And I want a house that is beautiful and completely off the grid. I want to produce my own food, water, and energy. So that was the start. Then I started adding in things like analemma water and things like this chemtrail disruptor and the EMF system from Essential Energy, and I added the chair, and I added all these different functional components, the FLFE system, and different soil building systems. And then I realized that this is a model that needs to be duplicated all over the world for us to win the war. So that's what we created. Now we're opening up 20 of these systems in Thailand and Africa, Canada, the United States, and we're inviting everybody to join us.
Mm,
We are based in voluntarism, so our contracts are basically agreements, and we have no hooks. We have no force and violence in our contracts. It's all based in the voluntary exchange of value.
that's right, and that's beautiful because a lot of people have been maybe burned in business, but in this new world that we're all co-creating, it's about honor and it's about respect and self-ownership, and we're all human, so we make mistakes, but we want to do what's good, and that's what you have demonstrated. And it's a very inspiring place there in Central Florida. So I hope people consider it and go visit you and learn. I guess you're doing tours there. We saw Tim Pashot over there and a lot of amazing people. You had the event in November, the Path to Freedom, and I think you'll probably do that event also in November again. Yes.
Oh, big time. That's what's so encouraging to me is all of the amazing people that have been attracted to and see the value of what we're doing. We have, Darren Olean, Emmy Award winners. We have world champions and different, different like UFC, like Pat Miletich, and who's now a soil savior, and Theo Fleury, who is just a fantastic guy who really understands trauma, and General Holt and Doc Chambers. All these amazing people have come around, and we are creating a parallel economy. We must, right? The economy that we have is going down. It's meant to crash so they can bring in the CBDC and control us exactly like is written in the Mark of the Beast, right?
Yep.
They can control everything we do, everything we buy. They use the carbon narrative to scare everybody. They use fear and scarcity is the recruitment method for war. Our model takes out scarcity, and therefore it takes out fear, and then the recruitment stops.
Mm-hmm. Right. Our model is the opposite, which is agape love and plenty and abundance.
Yes, that's exactly right. The name of our entity, Food Forest Abundance, that is our mission. BlackRock, that's
Yes.
their mission. It's
Yes.
their intention, right?
Right.
By their deeds, by their fruits, you shall know them, right? But guess what? BlackRock is now starting to crack. It's
Mm.
starting to fail, and
Yeah.
people are leaving and getting fired, and big money is coming out of BlackRock. And we have what is for certain the most valuable business model in the world right now, and that is to come together, to collaborate, and to create a new food supply chain that is free of poisons and force and violence.
Yeah, you shared that good news about BlackRock a few weeks ago, and I'm really grateful because in the propaganda, mainstream media, even alternative media, there's a lot of fear, and they haven't discovered this solution of independent food, water, energy, and even entertainment and healing centers, right? This Freedom Farm Academy, I think, is a great hub where people can start saying, you know what, we don't need your system. In fact, Bill Gates said something, I don't know when, but recently he said, if you don't have a digital ID, you won't be able to participate in society. And my thought was, great. I don't want to participate in your society because you're going to be doing this mark of the beast, as Aaron Russo put in his documentary, Freedom to Fascism, so many years ago, the RFID chip, where it's like, see how easy and convenient it is. You just swipe your hand here and no identity theft. So they're going to have all these curveballs and manipulation of your human nature. But as we tap into the divine or source or creator or nature, for anybody out there, that, you know what, we're connected directly to the creator and all that is. And even the spiritual component seems to be, we're all like individuations of one consciousness. So ultimately, like, we're all one consciousness. How do you feel about these comments?
Oh, it's absolutely right on when we recognize the ultimate lie, and that is that we are not God, that we are not part of the divine, right?
Yeah.
Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you,
Yes.
and God is omnipotent and omnipresent. Well, what does that mean? The arrogant ego will say, I'm not that, right? Edging God out. It'll be this false belief that somehow we are not part of the divine. When we recognize that this is a temporary suit and that we are part of the divine at the higher levels of connection and consciousness, then fear goes bye-bye. I don't have any fear anymore, right?
Mm.
And so that's the key. That's why we've done all this building without asking for permission. We do not comply with any force and violence of the system. And we're standing so firm in our declaration of who we are that 15 months in, we've got 7 houses finished and 3 more that'll be finished here very soon. Nobody's bugging us because they do not want this debate public. They want to use the legal system, which is the undoing of God's law. And they want to say, keep it private. And all the lawyers are trained to say, you got to keep this private. You can't let this go out public.
Right.
Bullshit, right?
That's
That's program belief systems that lead to enslavement. If anybody comes here to threaten me with force and violence, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my camera and I'm
absolutely.
going to say, who are you? What's your name? And do you think I'm your slave? And I'm going to have them answer that question and a bunch more questions. And we've got cameras here. We are very strategic and tactical in our Declaration of Freedom.
Yes.
And they are not showing up. Now, I've invited Governor DeSantis here, and I very publicly shared with him that if we use 5% of the Florida state budget, I'm not a fan of taxation. It's theft.
Right.
I recognize that the system exists and people are going to pay into it until they wake up. But while they are, why don't we say, okay, government, if you took 5% of the Florida state budget over 4 years, that would equal $18 billion. $18 billion would create 18,000 $1 million food forest installations in the state of Florida. That's every school. That's every prison. That's every city park. That's every opportunity zone. Florida in 4 years would become paradise, and it would be a model for the world to emulate.
That's beautiful. And actually, I think you're working with some schools and prisons now. You want to share with the some of the projects or some of the things you're doing because it really is powerful. You're like tapping into the community that aren't necessarily pro freedom, but they have land and maybe some rehabilitation.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll give you some stats like let's say in prisons. We went to a prison, met with Warden Baker, and we shared with her what the results of the inmates growing their own food could be. And this has been done, right? The results of inmates participating in a gardening program in California for 3 years were that the taxpayers saved $40 million and that the recidivism rate fell by more than 60%.
Mm.
That's the end of the majority of crime. Boom. And that's not even permaculture ethics and principles. That's just a simple gardening program, right?
Mm.
Because when the prisoners get connected, when they eat healthy, poison-free food, everything starts to align and they no longer want to commit crimes, right? And schools, same thing. If a candidate for this insane, ridiculous theater of presidency, right, which I don't pay any attention to, I've met with two candidates. I met with Bobby Kennedy and Dr. Shiva, who hate each other, but both agreed with what I was saying 100%, because how
Yeah.
could they not?
Right.
So imagine if some candidate said, I'm going to take all the poisons out of the school lunches and school land, and we are going to reverse childhood diabetes and depression and sickness and illness and all these things.
Yes.
Well, that claim would go nuts online. And as a result of turning every school into a permaculture nursery, it's
Hmm.
been done multiple times and the students are way better off.
Yeah.
So we're
And
doing it. We put a large food forest in a school right up here, by the way. It's called Creative Inspiration Journey School, and they now have a badass food forest.
yeah, I can't wait to see it next time I'm in the area or see what it looks like because children naturally are like pure and innocent. And so when they are taught these things or shown, it's very exciting, especially as a boy, as a man, I don't know, but like you like to play in the dirt, but I think maybe little girls like to play in the dirt too and dig and plant and like, get into it versus sitting at a desk for 12 years. I mean, it's got to be one of the most empowering educations a child can get.
Yeah, I think it is the most learning to steward our land, learning about the connection with Mother Nature, which is what we are, right?
Yes.
We are nature. And my daughter, my 4-year-old, she's a little food forest nature girl. It's so epic. She wants to go play with the chickens and she's got her own favorite chicken that she carries around and she wants to pick treasures. In fact, we go out treasure hunting and the treasures are the fruits that we find. It's
Awesome.
magical. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What a joy to grow up, in this environment. I gotta say, man. So you mentioned the schools and the prisons and being public. You mentioned that in the last speech you gave from the Greater Reset was really powerful. But just to make it public, what's going on, and let the order followers and the conformists out there know this is not against you, but this is against the system that has been used to, at least in the last 4 years, shut down businesses and put masks on people. And I think you probably stand for freedom of choice there at Galt. Yes.
We invite everybody to participate. We we don't condemn. Like I was incredibly ignorant. In 2007, I was just waking up to 9/11 and the inside job nature of that whole thing. And I thought it was Bush and Cheney and Rice and Rumsfeld and all those clowns. And then Obama got elected. When Obama first got elected, I had tears of joy.
Wow.
That's how ignorant I was. So
Yeah.
I don't hate anybody because I recognize that this is a divine game that we're playing somehow. And I recognize that they're playing a wicked, disgusting, nasty role. I also recognize that everybody can be inspired. And then the question is, how do we inspire them? Right? How do we inspire somebody who has spent a lifetime harming and destroying to use their energy for good? Right? Well, we show them what it's like. Like what I'm sitting in is not the hypothetical solution to all of the world's problems and to winning the war. It's the demonstratable solution. And there's a big difference. Nobody argues, nobody comes here and says it doesn't work because here we are.
Hmm. What do you think a beginner? So you mentioned, thanks for mentioning the 5 gallon buckets in the closet with some LED lights. That's a great place to start. Is there a, I don't know, number of fruits and vegetables that they can start as a beginning? You said a guild, or how do you see it? Because you have a lot more experience than me and probably many of our viewers and listeners. How do we get to where you're at? I mean, you can't get there immediately, but is there a handful, 5, 10 plants or fruits and vegetables, or 12, or what's the? Is there like a basic, like potatoes or something? Like, what are the key things that
Yeah.
we should start planting in our zones?
I love it. There's two ways to go about it, two different ways, but they both get the same results eventually. The first way is, let's say somebody's broke and they really need their $20 to go buy some food. Well, buy the right food. Buy poison-free organic foods. All right. If you like fruits and vegetables, you can take the seeds out of the fruits and vegetables that you get. Maybe at a farmer's market would be best. And then you take that, you go on YouTube and you say, how do I propagate this particular seed? And you can literally start your own food forest by not spending any other cash, but just having the resourcefulness to go get your seeds and propagate them in soil, which you can find buckets. You don't need to spend a dime. If you want to speed up time, and time is of the essence, then that's what we do. In fact, we have an awesome process. We have what's called a strategy session. You can go on our website, foodforestabundance.com, and sign up for a strategy session. It doesn't cost anything. It's 30 minutes talking with a professional permaculture designer. And then after that strategy session, you can either choose to just do it yourself, or you can purchase a design and work with one of our designers to design your space to be productive. And that will save a ton of time.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Time is of the essence, and I've planted a few trees, and I'm learning about pruning now. This last few weeks, I'm like, wow, okay. It's actually very fun and exciting. I'm in the education world, and so there's the inner frustration of like, man, I wish I would have learned this earlier. Why didn't they teach me this? But then I connected the dots, Jim, and it was, if they would have taught me how to grow my own food from a young age, then I wouldn't be
Yes.
buying all of their processed foods, all their GMOs. So there's a connecting of the dots that I think happens with growing our own food and getting independent. And when people are around you and they see your place, you're a truly free man, because not only you're spiritually free, but now your food and your location also is free and independent. So this is the type of energy that I see going around the world. And you also shared a vision. I think this was I don't know when we first met, but it was either a third of the lawns in America. You dreamed to turn them into food forests, or Freedom Farm Academy, maybe food forests, but having edible gardens, right?
Yes. Our whole mission is to inspire and empower a shift in awareness that leads to mass adoption of simply taking the poisons out and loving our lawn again, loving our land, not our lawn, transitioning that lawn into food forests, into edible landscapes. And by the way, this is done in HOAs now. In fact, they can't even stop us. When an HOA president, when somebody goes to them and says, "Can I grow a food forest?" the answer is almost always no. And then they bring a design and say, "I'm going to redesign my landscape to look like this." And then they go, "Oh, yeah, that's great." Because they're fearful what they don't know. But once they see a beautiful landscape
Yeah.
design, then they say yes. And here's the deal: I wouldn't comply no matter what they said.
Yeah.
But for those who want to, just are a little tentative about that, and I get it, then show them what a design looks like. And then the answer is typically yes. And then there are also laws in a lot of states, which I don't go through that system at all. But if you want to, there are a lot of states where you cannot deny somebody for planting. Here in Florida, it's called the Florida Natural Landscape, and HOA cannot deny planting native Florida plants in your yard here because it's better in every way, and it's been proven.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that you say it's not comply. I think this is one of the solutions to victory, which is Martin Luther King said, he said, instead of cooperating with evil, you don't cooperate with evil and you cooperate with good. And this is nature and the seeds and God and animals and everything working together. And, whatever happens is going to happen. But at this point, we see what's coming. And if we're participating and cooperating with them, that's, I think our soul feels that, says, I don't want to do this. But when we connect with you and people on your team and other, I mean, there's a growing food forest network on the planet right now, thanks to you. What are some of the numbers, if you care to share something? You mentioned some of the countries and continents, but what's the type of growth you've seen in the last 22 months?
So we just did our 800th and something design. So we've designed 800 landscapes starting into about 2.5 years to be food producing landscapes. And it's just the tip of the iceberg. And our whole thing is about open source. So if anybody wants to take any of the designs that we have and try to mimic and duplicate, go for it. Right? We have bigger fish to fry than worrying about little shit like that. We now are in process of designing a mega food forest golf course. We're in process of designing church land and school land and prisons and orphanages. What do you think of that? Um, I mean, we've got an orphanage design that's so badass. It's like a completely self-reliant orphanage where the students learn the most incredible craft while growing up in paradise. The art of creating life and designing life into systems. We have been called, we've got groups of the Saudis and groups in Africa and Thailand and all these different people coming together. The wisest among us are seeing the logic and simplicity of this, and they're saying, how can I participate? So our network, our team is standing by to serve, and that's what we do. And then we reinvest our surplus wisely, right? So it's, for me, I want one thing out of this, which I already have. It's my kin's domain, my homestead, which is completely off the grid, food, water, and energy, everything. That's what everything else I have, all of the other equity that I have is invested in the solution, in winning the war. And it's the most selfish thing I could ever do because it's joyful. And as a result of serving, right, in a system of abundance like we have, service results in reciprocation. So as a result of the service that I've provided, I've gotten like $2 million worth of free shit in the last 2 years. It's crazy.
Amazing. Well, you mentioned the churches and orphans. Is there any particular organization or entity that you have seen that they're more open to this idea, or is it all like everyone? Or is there one particular area where it's like, hey, these people are very open, and now they just need maybe some affiliates to go out there, or some designers to go out there, or what
Yeah.
communities or target demographic areas might have a really open mind to this, so we can help them get their food forest started.
I love it. Everybody in the freedom movement is the best. They're the top, right? Chiropractors and the whole chiropractic network are fantastic. Um, Schools that are not part of the normal indoctrination system, right? Schools that are on the well, just not the normal
Private.
school system, as you know
Right.
really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then here's the thing: when people come here not knowing what to expect, we have some Airbnbs where people that might be even Democrats and different people that would not typically be oops, um, sorry about that. People that would not typically be attracted to this show up, they leave changed. It's absolutely amazing. So then the biggest thing is we're inviting everybody to participate and starting the Freedom Farm Academies. By the way, we've created a council of 12 very famous and influential, courageous people, and we're raising 60 million. Sorry,
We
I got
got
to
you.
figure
So
out how to make it so the phone doesn't ring when I'm on these awesome chats. um, where we bring these folks in, and we're raising and we're putting all this money into food producing land, creating a new food supply chain during a food supply chain collapse. So if anybody out there knows anybody with wealth, then let's talk, because these systems are epically abundant and valuable on every level.
and would you say the ROI, because I've heard you say before, like you can count the number of seeds on the tree, but you can't count the number of trees in the seed. And so this is such a powerful part, the infinite component of source, divine creation. So it seems that if the investor or homeowner invests a certain seed into seed investment into their lawn, in 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, they're going to just have this gigantic food producing machine that they're going to have too much food, which is a great problem to have. So is it 5 to 7 years or 10, or what do you think the timeline is to get this like exponential hockey stick of production from the fruit and vegetables?
Well, in our system, so we are 22 months in the ground. We already have a lot of bananas. We have literally a ton of sweet potatoes. We've got tons of moringa. We've got living salad bars all over the place, right? So, like, this is longevity spinach and Okinawa spinach. And, like, anytime we want a salad, there it is, right? And we got papaya coming out of our ears. We got guava and strawberry fruit, and oh gosh, there's a lot of stuff. Now, in in 2 more years, you won't even be able to see those tents. This will be just a jungle of food.
Mm,
Yeah.
that is glorious.
Mulberries and cherries. Isn't that awesome? Loquats.
It's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said this is like the worst time of year because it's winter is now and soon spring will be here, and like you said, a couple of years you have the whole forest will be blocking the view, and you'll have that abundance there. Um, what? So you mentioned presidential candidates who oppose each other, but they cannot oppose the Freedom Farm Academy or Food Forest Abundance. Have you heard any objections to a food forest on someone's land, or what objections have you heard, if any, why somebody wouldn't want to do this really smart thing?
There's two objections. The big one, or two big ones. One is I don't know how to do it, and I don't think it'll succeed.
Yes.
And the one thing we've learned about that is, for somebody who simply wants to hold on to aggression and anger and just flick through, social media and pay attention to the war stories all day long and
Yeah.
not go observe and walk in their food forest, there's something magical about the interaction between this living system and us.
Yeah.
When I go walk in this, and the number one principle of permaculture is observe and interact, right?
Yeah.
So when I walk around and I see particular things that might be suffering, right? Like some of these citrus trees right here, they have that Florida canker or whatever, that Florida citrus greening. Well, what do we do with those? We add extra love to those. We add extra, like, I pee on that tree quite a bit. We put electroculture in here, and now the leaves are getting better, right?
Mm,
And there's something about the interaction that's magical. So we suggest everybody, if you got a food forest, it's so attractive. Go stand barefoot in the food forest and enjoy it. The other one is money. A lot
yeah.
of people right now are broke,
Mm,
and that is not a barrier. It's only a belief system barrier. You can still start a food forest. Yeah, and somebody's, but I don't. There's all these, but I. So there's always a way, right? 3 years ago, I was dead broke. I had no money, nothing. Now everything's paid off. It's free and clear, and I'm sitting in a food forest. Everybody can do this. It's a matter of belief systems. So that's what I want to do. I want to plant that seed of inspiration to let you know that you can do. Everybody can do this. It's just a matter of starting now and then following the path and letting the plants and the permaculture ethics and teachers and principles be our teacher.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the things you showed me, and as I was learning about also, is bees. So I think I'll probably buy some bees this month and start learning about that. But you want to share why bees are super
Oh,
important, and why you're
yes. They're
enjoying them?
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: I don't know a lot about bees, but we have beehives, and we got about 45 pounds of honey in the first year and a half. A pound of honey is valuable; it's incredible. And the bees, not only do we have honey, but the bees pollinate our plants. So these basil, like look at all the purple flowers there. The bees are just loaded on these plants, all the different colors. I mean, I don't know if you can see, but the sun's kind of down now, but look at all these colors here.
Yeah, it is
Isn't that
beautiful.
amazing? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
whoever's watching this, you got to come visit and see it. It's such a joy to walk through. You can't even imagine. And if you're lucky, Jim will be there to show you what you can eat and how to eat it. And it's just like it's like a natural grocery store, produce section at the grocery store, but better.
It is. It is. Look at
Okay,
all
we're
the
wrapping.
bananas coming. Yeah. All right,
Guys,
brother.
and so we're wrapping up the last maybe couple minutes here. What has been the most difficult thing for you in building this amazing Garden of Eden the last 2 years?
The part that has been the most perplexing and the most be like, this is amazing, is that people aren't taking action immediately.
Yeah.
But I recognize why now. It's just because they still have this barrier until they come here. That's why we need these systems all over the place, because when people see it online or they hear about it or they
Yeah.
watch a clip, they're like, oh, that's good for them. I wish I could do that, but I can't.
Sure.
Bullshit. So come here and just stand in this system. And here's the thing. I will give you a bunch of plants to propagate. And I get stories all. In fact, we had a guy here, Mike, the other day. I gave him a little sprig of sweet potato. And that was he said it was August 2022. So what is that, 2.5 years or so? 2.5 no, 1.5 years ago. I gave him a sprig of sweet potatoes. He has now this year he got 100 pounds of sweet potatoes, and he's given 20 of his friends starts. So now there's 20 more people growing sweet potatoes, and he's already harvested 100 pounds himself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, that's how it works, ladies and gentlemen. Is that you start it and then share it and grow it and share it, and it propagates, it grows. The sun, the water, the soils from God. I guess we do a little bit of soil amendments, he said, but this is all learnable, and you can do it, and I can do it, and we just got to set that vision, see that outcome, and go visit Galt's Landing if you can, because it is very inspiring. You see the dog there, the turkeys, the houses, the Airbnbs. Any final words, Jim, before we cut off, brother?
Come visit me, galtslanding.farm, GALTS landing.farm, and go to foodforestabundance.com and sign up for your free strategy session and talk to one of the designers.
There it is. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me on Voluntary Living, where we are building a world based on consent, self ownership, and freedom. And we're building food forests and learning from champions like Jim and his team and other people out there that are doing it. We can do it. We are doing it. We will win. We are winning. Keep speaking forth and keeping that vibrations within you, because this is the most exciting time to be alive, and you're on the winning team. So thanks for your time, and thanks for joining us on the show. We'll see you all very soon. Bye,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks, brother. Ciao.
Bye.